We're coming through. We're coming mention. How do you like that? Coming out from the halls. What? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu shehakol v'dvarim. Shneir. He's in there.
You just wanted to get a notebook or maybe.
What?
You just ran that way.
He went out?
I don't know. I think he's coming here. I think I have to guess him.
Interesting, in the third aliyah of this week's parsha, you have the word kirvu, and it's got the gershayim and a klisha b'dela.
Right. You say the gershayim first and klisha b'dela second.
Everywhere you look, it has it in the other order.
No, that's right. It's written. That's the way it's supposed to be written. And the reason for that is simply because the klisha gdoila is supposed to be on mil el, always on top of the word, and the gershayim is always at the end of the word. Tisha Gedoyla, we say Tisha Gedoyla. We don't say Tisha Gedoyla. We say Tisha Ktana, Tisha Gedoyla. And Gershayim belongs at the end of the word.
Meaning the placement is generally that, so that's why it's righted, but in this particular case, it's the opposite.
No, it's right, but the way, when you pronounce it, you sing the Gershayim first.
Today's Leah has.
Excuse me?
Today's Leah has Kadma Melcha.
It could be Kadma. Where?
I wonder what words.
So what about it?
The order is not. Is the order also switched there? No, it's Kadma and it's.
In the same word, there's no such thing.
Again, same word, two drops.
Two drop, yes, but not Kadma Mircha.
You don't have a moment, isn't it?
What's that drop?
You can have a Kadma, what we call a Pashto Kotoin, which is a Kadma with a Kotoin together.
It's going to be maybe.
Mercha Kfula is something else. It's not a Kadma. It's the double Mercha.
How do you read that, Roy?
What? Mercha Kfula. You're right.
I was right, he was right.
Ali Samar. Right. There is. But the word is broken down into two separate syllables completely. Not set together. Not like the Gershayim and Kadma and the Tisha Gdoila, you say it together. Kirvo.
Oh, you do it all on the same syllable.
All the same thing.
It's not kirvo.
No. Kirvo. Kirvo. See you, yes, I can.
I just learned something. It's good because I'm doing it on Shabbos. It's good to know.
All right.
Interesting trunk this week.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are on the very last line on page 177, as I recall it. Confirmed? Ubifrat.
I don't have page 178. I guess I can.
Oh, you better get it because we're turning the page right away.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. Yeah, extra for this topic.
That's for you.
To the next one?
No, I just have one.
That's for you.
Oh yeah. I have to
Oh, okay.
special.
All right. We are heavily involved in the union of histaklus. What? Into the union of histaklus, to be able to actually relate and see the union of Tiferes. Yikora de Malka. As we explained, that this Tiferes is something that does not surface, does not come up. You don't relate to it through logic, through his bonus, like his bonus of Chesed and Gvura. Tiferes you can only see. Except that the sight, since the sight, our sight is limited, the sight itself is limited to physical vision, and physical vision does not in itself reveal it. So it is, so to speak, intelligent vision, which is the proper way to see things. But it is through the process of sight where you actually experience, you actually recognize it. The Tiferes, the glory. And so the Rebbe goes in here and explains the principle of the Pasuk. That you should lift up your eyes and see mi bara eila. And the pshat in this pasuk, mi bara eila, is not who created them. The point is that you could see by observing them, you could see that there is a creator. You could see the creator himself in seeing the created, the creations. Not like before we spoke about many creatures and so forth, and the size of the creatures. There we talked about in the Hizbonus of Chesed and Pura. There, the point was that you see that you're misboinen how great is the Creator who is able to who creates such entities. Here, this is something else. This is not seeing how great is understanding how great is the Creator. It is actually seeing the effect of the Creator, the presence of the Creator himself. Because the creatures themselves, in effect, reveal and represent the Creator, the power of the Creator. Not in a secondary level, but in a primary level. In a sense, it's this concept.
What would be secondary?
But secondary means this is proof of his greatness.
Why is it not able to be a secondary?
It could be secondary, but then it's not Tiferes. I explained last time that Tiferes is an expression, a human expression, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It is in the eye. It is not something, you cannot explain beauty. You cannot explain glory. You can explain bigness, power, but you cannot explain, this is something which is, you have to look at it to see it.
But why can't that demonstrate why can't that demonstrate the greatness of the Creator?
It can. But that we already dealt with before. This is why, if you look at it, there's similar aspects. We went through Oisius. One spoke about his bonus for godless Abera, for Chesed, for Ahava. One spoke about his bonus that brings out Yira. And now we're talking about his bonus that speaks about Tiferes. And there's a lot of overlap. The point is that it's different emphasis. And the great uniqueness of the Tiferes, if you are looking into this, is that it actually impresses you. It's not just your own understanding, but you actually can be impressed by your vision itself, by the observation itself. It's perplexing what you see. And the Rebbe explains where is the perplexity. Among other things, is in this, that you see that the various creatures that do not dissipate, they perpetuate. How can a creature be a perpetual presence? Since that each creature is finite in itself, and a finite entity, logically, from a worldly perspective, a finite entity not contain infinite power. And if it is perpetuated indefinitely, that means it has infinite power. And therefore, this immediately brings you eye to eye, so to speak, direct contact with perpetuity, with infinity. So you see the glory of the King himself.
Didn't we say it wasn't in this stage, it wasn't the beginning of the first, I think. We said that we brought the example like the kid that was looking at the magazine and he's so beautiful. Like,
Kid, what?
someone in your house was looking at a magazine a long time ago. Like,
Oh.
And the whole idea that just to know how much greatness and variety there is in the world, this itself shows
Beauty.
this would be the secondary level.
No. The impression there was because of the glory, of the beauty of it. It's not the variety. Because it was presented in color and richness, and it gave her an uplift. One of the great things the Alter Rebbe speaks in Tanya about, he says that when you daven, you are expressing, you are actually describing the greatness of the world, which means the greatness of the Creator. And this is, in effect, a moment similar to when the king goes out to greet his subjects. When the king goes out to greet his subjects and he shows his glory, he shows his beauty, he shows the richness and the greatness of his kingdom. So anyone who at that particular moment becomes concerned about his own needs and he does not appreciate what the king is showing him is a fool. Did you remember learning this? In Tanya.
Anyone who does what is a fool?
That when there is such glory in front of him from the king, and he at this moment turns away to be concerned about his own concerns, he is a fool. Kama shaita v'nivza. Huh? And then besides it said that this is also an affront to the king, that he doesn't appreciate the king. It's also like a merida b'malchus. He's talking about if somebody during davening talks, talks some worldly things. Davening is a time when the king comes close and shows his presence, his glory to the people. At that time, when he stands and talks about his own needs or worldly things, he shows that's the expression of Rebbe. He shows his stupidity and insensitivity, and also it's also in the category of merida b'malchus.
But that's not a problem for asking for your needs during Shemona Esrei. Well, you ask for your needs during Shemona Esrei.
No. Asking needs during Shemona Esrei is a different thing completely. Asking needs during Shemona Esrei is you're asking your needs in order to to receive your next mission from the king. When the king sends you onto a mission, he gives you the resources with which to accomplish it. So, the fact that we see that all of these creatures don't dissipate, and they have perpetuity, and even the creatures here on earth, which do not have individual perpetuity, that's called kayomim be'ish. Ish means each. They don't have individual perpetuity, but they have kayomim b'min, that their species has perpetuity. That too is a super worldly power, quality. It cannot be contained within the human being. How can a human being who's finite have the koyach for indefinite recreation? So therefore, they are efshori hametzius. I'm actually starting at the beginning of this line.
Which line?
The last line. Vareihem efshori hametzius. All these creatures are in a state under the level of efshori hametzius, meaning efshori hahefset. I'm sorry, efshori hahefset. That it's definitely inherent within their being that they can dissipate. Hefset means to become null. Why aren't they dissipating altogether? And moreover, particularly, on the basis of the Rambam writes, Shekol ho'efshori b'min, that anything that is efshori, that is possible within a species, yefsher shelo yovei. It is impossible that it should not materialize, it should not actually occur. Anything that is efshori b'min, yefsher shelo yovei. We asked before the question, why don't they dissipate? Since it's possible for them to dissipate, what is it that prevents them from dissipation? The Rambam says a little stronger, that if it's possible for them to dissipate, then it is impossible that they should not dissipate. This is what's called in the Rambam one of the axioms of reason. That something that is finite and has the possibility of such and such to happen, then every possibility that exists therein has to happen eventually. Yefsher shelo yov.
In the whole mean?
In the whole mean. In other words, if the reproduction aspect of the species would entail a decrease from one generation to the other generation, a decrease, then eventually it has to dissipate. Elo. However, it must, this is the conclusion. This is what we observe. It must be. This that we see, the perpetuity in the mean, is clearly from the koyach ha'insof habilti bal gvul. So even though this is a finite creature, but it is the koyach ha'insof that gives it its presence. It's a finite, like we said last time, it's a finite creature with infinite presence. So this is true even in the species, in the creatures of the earth, down below. The yoiser muvon zeh. This is even more explicitly understood mehashamayim utzva maila, from the heavens, utzva maila, and the hosts and the creatures above. Shehashamayim v'chol hagalgalim. Shamayim, the heavens, and all the galgalim. The union of galgalim in today's mentality, it is very difficult for us to relate to the concept of galgalim. Galgal means a circle or a wheel. The concept that the Rambam describes regarding Galgalim is that all the various planets and stars in the heavens, they are placed, each one is placed in its own Galgal, in its own circle. And then this Galgal rotates. And as the Galgal rotates, the planet rotates together with the Galgal.
So the whole Galgal rotates?
The whole Galgal rotates. Circles, moves around in a circle.
I'm confused.
It's not each planet has its own Galgal, or it's a Galgal around the whole solar
No, there are many Galgalim.
So it's not like science says that it rotates around the thing. The whole thing is rotating?
The whole thing is rotating. And then there is what's called Galgal Hayoimi, which is a super Galgal that is around all the Galgalim, above all the Galgalim. And this Galgal Hayoimi is ultimately the cause for all the other rotations. Almost similar to the concept of if one Galgal turns, the other one turns opposite.
A gear.
Like gear.
I don't know what's a gear rotating.
A car and gear.
Like a gear. This, in fact, it comes from the observation that there are different planets move in different directions. Some move east to west, some move west to east, and some have different forms altogether. So the point of the Galgalim, as far as what we can understand, is the fact that we have two things that we observe. We observe the sun, for instance. Galgal Hashemesh, it's called. Galgal Hashemesh, the solar circle. So we observe two things. So that's the sun itself, that the power of the sun doesn't dissipate. And then also, its movement doesn't change, which is the power that moves the Galgal. This is what Avraham Avinu said. That the way the Medrash brings it down, and the Gemara and the Rambam brings it down, that Avraham Avinu was mispoining, reflected when he observed the entire cosmos, and he said there has to be somebody that maintains all of these movements. This is in addition to the presence of the entity itself, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the planets. It is the rotation power that it doesn't dissipate, doesn't change. We can understand this a little bit more palatably, a little more realistically, from the fact that when we send up artificial satellites, they eventually lose their speed, and eventually they do drop out. They will not stay there forever. They eventually will lose their speed. As a matter of fact, there was a whole story recently about a satellite, a dead satellite. They wanted to prevent it from hitting Earth, so they had to explode it in air, in space. And here, all of these rotations of these huge bodies maintain their rotation to the exact moment. It really is marvelous how this is. We can make a calendar today. I mean, the calendar that we have, the calendar that we use, was made by Hillel. This was one of the Ameroim. Was made approximately 1,500 years, 1,700 years ago.
When did the Goyish calendar get made?
Well, and the calendar is a completely different concept than ours. Ours is a lunar concept. They had to adjust to the sun and all that. Their calendar is all based on the sun. So it's a much simpler calendar. So the proximity of sun and moon, the exact moment when the sun and moon are going to meet and when they're going to separate, has been pre-calculated for thousands of years.
Whoa.
What's that when they meet? Is that an eclipse?
Well, no. It's sort of like an eclipse. It's an eclipse of the moon, but not an eclipse. What you call an eclipse is when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon.
Oh.
The sun, when the moon is dark and we don't see the moon. Why is it that we don't see the moon? It's because the sun shines at the other side. Yeah. So this has been pre-calculated. It's total exactitude.
Like a certain number of hours. It's like 29 days.
29 days and a quarter. But there is splits also. This is why you heard chalokim. You say that. You might, what's a chalik? A chalik is 1/1800th of a minute or something like that.
What?
Because he wanted to have an exact. They have the exact number. I don't remember exactly what it is, but yes.
And that was from that then, and we're still counting with it today?
Exactly the same thing.
If we needed to know, but why do we have to have witnesses if we know when the birth of the moon is going to be?
That's a mitzvah in the Torah.
Oh.
The Bezdin, when they needed to establish a Chedesh, the Bezdin needed to be perfectly well versed in all the principles of when to establish a Chedesh. And they had pre-calculated when the Chedesh is going to be. But there is a mitzvah in the Torah that should come from witnesses. So if the witnesses come and testify that they saw the moon before a certain day, they're dismissed. They're not accepted altogether. And if they come after, the Bezdin already assigns a Chedesh before without witnesses. But it's a mitzvah in the Torah that should be witnesses.
So it's just like a process. It's not.
Yeah, it's a mitzvah. It's a whole
We
thing.
know already when it's Chodesh.
Oh, we know it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all of these circles Utzvo Milo and the heavenly hosts. The heavenly hosts, this is really a host. A host means this is a whole army. Because everything that exists in the entire cosmos, the star and the moon, it's obvious, but even all the planets and all the stars, everything has an effect on our earth. Everything has an effect. Everything has a function and a purpose. That's what it's over. Harei heim kiyem hibara mamish. They're all in exact power. Kiyem hibara. Like the day when they were created. Ukmei shekosu b'Yerushalmi. And as the Rishalmi says, al posuk, the Rishalmi comments on the posuk, Eile toildes hashomayim v'ha'oretz b'yem hiborom. These are the generations and the consequence of Shamayim Oretz b'yem hiborom, the day when they were created. What is inferred by b'yem hiborom? Shem chazokim ki yem hiborom. That they are strong, the same strength, ki yem hiborom, like in the day of their creation. So here, this is a total oddity, a shocking phenomenon. But they too are limited, finite creatures, umurkovim, and they are also a combination, miguf and nefesh, mugbal. They also have a body and a soul, meaning they have mass, simple goof, and they have the nefesh, their function. Shem chazokim mugbal, and all that is finite. Ve'ef shorei ha'hefset, and therefore the possibility of hefset is presently there. Is present there, clearly.
I thought we were saying that there is no hefset.
Efshorei ha'hefset, the possibility of hefset is there. In and of themselves, as they are presenting themselves, there is no reason why they shouldn't be nifset. There's nothing inherent in the sun that the sun should not diminish in power. Or the stars and so forth. They're called efshorei ha'hefset, efshorei. It's possible for them. They themselves, it's possible for them to dissipate. Umikol mokoim, and yet still, ish mehem leinador. None of them, even any individual, leinador is not lost. It does not dissipate. Bli shum shinui vehefsek klal, without any change or interruption at all. Okay, so this is truly a great revelation and demonstration to us that the world is a reality greater than itself. You know the expression, bigger than world, bigger than life?
Yeah.
The world is bigger than itself. Because itself is finite, but its reality is bigger than itself. It's not finite. This reminds us of the story that I told you many times. The Rebbe said that the destruction of the world is impossible. Even though, logically, it is possible. Because the presence of the world is not because of itself, it maintains itself. There is a godly will that it should be. And that will, nobody can affect it. And when we look at the world, we can readily be impressed by the phenomenon that this is a real world. This is not a temporary thing. This is a presence that's bigger than what we can contemplate.
So the sun give the same heat like 5,000 years ago?
That's right, exactly the same.
So how the scientists explain it?
How the scientists explained it?
It's not like it's biggest miracle.
They
Like
used to say
energy in the
stars
land
explode
and
and stuff.
stay the same.
How do scientists explain reproduction, human reproduction? How do scientists explain fruit reproduction? Every tree produces fruit with a seed in it.
No, I studied this in the school.
What?
He's some knowledge that we push him to grow, take from the outside.
But what is in the tree that the tree should produce a seed? Why would a tree produce a seed for reproduction? What's the rationale for the tree to produce a reproduction seed? Why does the tree care that its species should continue? Right, essentially. Right? The tree produces fruit and seed. And they take the seed, you put it in the ground, it goes produces another tree. In other words, the tree somehow is concerned. What's going to happen after I die?
You're saying it has some type of intellect.
I'm saying, how do the scientists explain that? The tree doesn't have an intellect. Clearly, there is some force in the tree that is not explicable.
It doesn't want to die.
What?
That doesn't want to die, you see.
No, the tree couldn't care less.
There's some force behind the tree.
Behind the tree that wants it to stay around. Its presence is bigger than itself.
That's crazy.
Right? That's it.
You can't explain that it comes from the tree.
How can it come from? Yeah, right.
From us.
Look, think about this. Even human beings who are intelligent and who have feelings and you could say they're concerned about the future. Even human beings, in terms of reproduction, having children, there's a whole argument today. Who says I have to produce? People go, I don't have to. I enjoy my life without it. There's nothing in my life that pushes me to reproduce. In other words, even though it's inherent in the human soul, but it's a soul thing. It's not a body thing. But from the perspective of my bodily experience, I don't need to do it.
Intellectually, it's not.
It's not compelling.
Even intellectually, you can make an argument. A person actually simply doesn't benefit from
That's right.
producing. It only actually takes away from him.
That's if your intellect is a dead intellect. In other words, it's an intellect that's created from worldly experience rather than from the soul. Yes, you can very easily argue. Not argue that many people maintain that philosophy. There's a whole, as sick as it is, but it's taken root. And people don't know the difference between a marriage between man and a woman that eventually that has a perpetuity in it, and abominations. That's also called marriage. In other words, from the physical perspective, you can lower yourself. If you refuse to recognize the soul, which is eternal, which is not part of the body, which is just in the body on alone. From the bodily perspective, nothing in the world has inherent in it perpetuity. Doesn't demand perpetuity.
Could you say that the drive of life that it seeks to reproduce and continue is a reflection of the eternal nature of the soul, since the soul is eternal?
It is.
And life is trying to reflect that in physicality.
It
by
is.
continuing
It
itself?
is. It's entirely a soul thing. It's entirely a soul thing in the human being, and lahabel in the tree. But in the tree, it's a different. You know, it's all the soul itself. What is soul? It's all a representative of godly presence.
I mean, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but according to that logic, if Adam and Chava hadn't partaken of the Eitz Das, so then there would have been no death in the world, and therefore the physical body itself could have mirrored the eternal aspect of the neshama, and therefore there would have never been any reproduction.
Well, there was a reproduction right in the beginning. The mitzvah of reproduction started right away. But it's true that the body would be at the level of the soul. That's what's going to be, after Tchias HaMesim.
So then why would there be embedded in life at that point this need to reproduce? If the need to reproduce is kind of like...
The need of reproducing is not, you're right. And right now we see a production only for the purpose of perpetuity. But that's not what happens. For perpetuity, all you need is to have one child, 2 children, a man, a boy and a girl. Perpetual. Hamshacha. Well, then you need only that each one should produce a boy and a girl. That's perpetuity. If Adam Rishon had one son and one daughter, it would continue indefinitely. But that's not what happens.
I mean, you just continue one man and one woman throughout history, and one, labda, one female dog, one male dog, one female cow.
That's right.
Pairs.
Yeah. Look, it could be that it would multiply automatically, but not like the way that we have that. The same that one couple can have multiple children. That's because of pru urvu. Rashi said pru means you should have. Pumtat pru will be just a single reproduction. Urvu means it should multiply. Why multiply? It's not just for perpetuity purposes. It is to bring out all the qualities that are inherent in the human being, and it's infinite. Every human being is different than the other. And it is to reveal all the richness that exists in Hashem's world.
Is that why we say that until all the people are born, all the souls are born in bodies which come? Because each person has something that no one else can bring to the world?
That's right. That's complete.
Doesn't science say that, just wondering how it relates to that, the way it relates at all, that there's an instinct in humans and other animals too, to reproduce, to perpetuate, not explaining out the neshama.
What's an instinct?
They said that it's an instinct, right? So
what's an instinct?
Something that's
who gives him the instinct?
Right, that's where it falls short.
I mean, this is all such folly, such stupidity, It's like we discussed many times. Do you see this? Yes, I see it. So that means that you have sight. No, I don't have sight. This thing hit my eye, and that's how it touched my eye, and this is how I know it.
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry. You're ridiculing like this.
Yeah, I mean, how do they explain sight? Sight is such a fine neshama quality.
Okay.
But you can deny it. You say, no, I'm blind, I don't see anything. This, and just like if I touch it, it forces itself, I feel it in my hand. And I can always explain that sight means that you see something in its own place, not by being affected by it. Okay? But there is a light coming from this object to my eye. Since there is a light coming from the subject to my eye, so then that cancels out the whole principle of sight. The light hits my eye, and I somehow blindly interpret that light that there is something there. I don't see this thing. It's my own imagination. Okay. So this is really a phenomenal thing that reveals to us a koyach bilti balgabul, an infinite koyach. Uma shom razal. This which the Chazal said, she's alfei shnin have alma, that the world will be for 6,000 years. V'chad charuv, and then there's going to be one day, which means 1,000 years. Charuv, there will be destruction, there will be no world. Because it says in the posuk, this Chazal say it on this posuk, Shamayim ke'oshon nimlochu, v'ha'oretz kibeged tivle. Shamayim, the heavens, ke'oshon, like smoke, nimlochu, have dissipated. The ha'oretz, and the earth, kebeged, like a garment, tibole, or tibole, I don't know exactly in the posuk is, tibole, will fade away. What's the English word? That will rot away. Hare, thus we see, shasov kol sov yufsadu, that ultimately they will dissipate. So why do we say that this is permanent? But we have to understand, hina is there. But this phenomenon, that will be shomayim ki oshen imlocha v'oros ki abeged tible, kibole, this is only rak mitzad rotzen habeira sheyikach. It is only because of the will of the Creator. This is Hashem planned it. This Hashem. But the Gemara is saying that this is what Hashem wants, not that this is inherent in the creation that is dissipating. The creation stays with the same strength and youthfulness, just as the moment of creation. And then Hashem takes it away. Tibol. Huh?
What are we talking about?
I'm sorry?
What are we talking about? We always say that the world is eternal and good. Now we're saying it could dissipate, but it's because God wants.
Mm-hmm.
There is such a thing? Sounds like
Well, this refers to the Indian. That's just like there is Shabbos, 6 days of the week in Shabbos, where there is no creation. So too, there is an overall Shabbos, just like there's 7 years, and then there's 6 and 7 years, and 7 times 7, and so forth. There is also Hashem's day is called Elef Shana. Hashem's day is 1,000 years, and there too, the world is created for 6 days, and then there's a seventh that is not world. It's called Charuv. It's called Charuv. Charuv means it's Charuv. There are many insights explaining this 70,000 years. It is commonly known that the 7,000 years is like Shabbos, which means that this is the time of Kabbalah Schar, where the world comes to its complete perfection. Just like Shabbos is world elevates itself to a place, to a level, where there's nothing left to be done except experience the godly glory. This is what's going to be in the seventh day, 7,000 years. And that's called Charuv, from the perspective that there's not going to be any creation, any creativity taking place. Just like Shabbos, there's nothing being created.
There's gonna be Gashmis, like there's gonna be a Gashmis world.
Okay, so this is mitzad pnimis or inyanim, mitzad, but the Gashmi, so to speak, looking at the Gemara, mitzad nigla, says Charuv, the world will dissipate. I said that there is the Kabbalah that is not dissipation in the simple sense, but there's going to be a higher type of world, different kind of world.
Forever. Or only for 1,000 years.
For 1,000 years. Then begins a new cycle.
Again, everything.
And a new cycle of a different level.
Godless, again,
Of a different level. We had it here, right? Nun Allah from Yeglis.
but it's all good. It's nothing.
Yeah, everything is good.
I mean, there's no more Godless. No more Godless and all that.
No more Godless, right? No, you should repeat the Godless now. But so the Rebbe points out, so we're saying that it's ultimately going to be Nifsad. No, if it's Nifsad, it's only because this is the way the Beira wants it, not because the object itself dissipates. Ki ein zeh, ki inyan, this inyan of its dissipation is not similar to the principle that we say, kinyan ha-hefsodus, like the principle of hefsodus. Hefsodus means dissipation, that something is nifsad. What is the principle of dissipation? The principle of dissipation is shemereishis haviyosoi maschil hiposot. That from the very beginning, when it begins to exist, it begins to dissipate, slowly to dissipate. Ukmei shekoso habchaya, and as the Bchaya writes, shehatinoik, that an infant, miyoim hivoldei, from the moment of his birth, maschil his yavesh, he begins to dry. In other words, at the moment of his birth, his body and soul, and his body is full of life, full of ability of absorbing and relating to soul. But then in maschil his yavesh, immediately begins to become older, to dry up. Ultimately, at the end of his life, this is when the body can no longer be a house and a shom. It no longer has the sap, no longer has the life quality to be able to house and a shom. In other words, v'hainu, shahef sodus he tomid bei. They have sodus, the dissipation is constant. It's a gradual dissipation, constantly. Something that has this quality, that it dissipates constantly, slowly over a period of time, this is called dissipation. This is called inherent dissipation, and it shows the limitation of that entity. That's a finite entity, and it has an inherent limit for its persistence, for its existence, and therefore the inherent limit begins to show immediately that it immediately loses some of its force, some of its power. But the heavens and the earth, sheheim chazokim kiyem hiboru, that which are strong with the same strength, kiyem hiboru, as in the day of their creation. Ve'ein bahem shum hefsodus klal. They do not have any kind of dissipation on a gradual, on a continuous basis. It's only that we say that in the future time, yufsadu, they will be dissipated, basachas, they will be eliminated, because this is what Hashem wants. Ein zeki you have sodus. That is not the principle of his sodus. In other words, we do not see their inherent limit while they exist. While they exist, they are permanent. But then Hashem decides that this is the end of their of the plan, so then they cease to exist. That's not the principle of Hefsodus. This is a reflection actually of the Rotzen HaBeira, of the will of the Creator. Shemekaimom, the Rotzen HaBeira that maintains them, and when the Rotzen will be that they should dissipate, Yufsadu Memela. If Hashem doesn't want them, then automatically they cease to exist. V'imkein, and thus, Hakiyim Shalahem Achshov, their persistence now, in the current existence, Hu Kiyum Bilti Meshuno Bilti Nifsok, is an existence that does not change and does not dissipate. They are Kiyum that we observe. What we observe is permanence, a permanent existence, both without change and without dissipation. In Kain Nira Heitev, and thus we can clearly see that there is an infinite, unlimited koyach that gives them sustenance and vitality constantly. This constant presence of everything that we observe is actually a representation of a koyach bilti balgvul, of an infinite koyach. This is why it can be maintained indefinitely without any change. Okay?
According to Pshat in Torah, whoever didn't learn anything that is not Pshat, they
I'm
would
sorry,
learn
what?
that the world, according to Pshat in Torah, would learn that the world is going to be Haruf, destroyed eventually, right? But
That's what the Gemara says.
Yeah, but it doesn't go against many things even in Pshat. When we talk about the fact that God didn't create the world for destroying it, so it seems almost
No.
there's nothing, not even in Pshat should be such a view that the world is only gonna like that.
If the world will be destroyed, it is only because the world has already fully accomplished its mission. And now it has to restart all over again. Just like at night you go to sleep. But you have work to do. The answer is that for this day, you finish your work. Now you go to sleep and you get new strength, and you start all over again.
But the heavens and the earth are going to keep existing anyways. It's only something.
Whether they keep existing or not, that's why I said to you there are various different ways of explaining it. Regardless of what it is, if they don't continue to exist, nothing is going to be lost. Because what is the function of everything that exists? The ultimate function. Because their own existence is finite and is insignificant. What do we observe when we say the world is so beautiful and so important, so significant? It is the godly presence that the world represents. And if, from the perspective of the godly will, the world has to dissipate, so then nothing's going to be lost. Like you say, Lo toyu b'ro l'shavas etzon, right? Hashem created the world not to toyu, but l'shavas. And yet Shabbos, you don't say Lo toyu b'ro l'shavas etzon. Shabbos you say, no, I'm abstaining from work. Why? Because Kol Malachtacha Asura, by the time Shabbos comes, all of the inyan we have to do from Lo toyu b'ro l'shavas etzon has been accomplished. Now comes a different moment where there's nothing to be done.
There's
meaning behind not having any meaning?
I'm sorry?
There's meaning behind not, like, just there because of a godly existence, but not having any reason for being there?
That's the reason, the godly will. That's the biggest reason for everything.
Is there
It's the only
anything
reason.
created with no function?
No. No. Nothing was created for a function. Nothing can possibly be created without a function.
But on Shabbos nothing has a function, right?
Excuse me?
On Shabbos everything has a function still?
The Shabbos, based on, I mean, in context of what we're discussing, so we're saying Shabbos is the time when functionality in terms of creativity has been fully accomplished. Now is a time for revelation of what was accomplished.
And that's its function then?
That is function then.
Still has a function.
The word seems like out of place.
I'm sorry?
The word itself seems to be completely out of place, not the concept, because destruction seems not that they say fulfill its maximum place. It seems like destruction. It seems like to destroy something. Like, it seems very harsh. Lashon, if it doesn't mean
Charuv.
something harsh.
Right, charuv, it's true. Gemara says charuv, but it means it's non-functional. Charuv. Regarding those days, even regarding the days of Mashiach, which is closer, which is more within the realm of our world, even there the Rambam says that there are no Torah principles as to how this is going to occur. We just know that it's going to happen. So the Rambam describes a certain scenario, but he says, actually, this is not something which is a must to follow this scenario, because these are things which we will not know how they're going to be until they will be. Which we only have to know that they are going to be. Certainly, when you talk about the 7th millennium, which is a different period completely from our world.
That's not Mashiach?
Hmm?
That's not Mashiach also?
No, Mashiach is before that.
So if Mashiach comes before that, but let's say, and then the 7th millennium, that's it, and then what is, and then again Mashiach, or I don't know, I thought Mashiach comes and it's Mashiach forever and that's it, but it seems like
I want to try and explain to you a certain principle. In our mentality, in our orientation, when we say something is temporary, what does temporary mean? Temporary means that I only have a certain duration of time, certain length of time when I can accomplish my thing. And if I don't accomplish it during this time, then I can have unaccomplished things, unaccomplished tasks. Too late. So when something is left unfinished because time is up, that means that it's a temporary thing. But if something ends, so to speak, not because time is up, but because it has accomplished and fulfilled completely its mission. Let's say you're driving to Montreal. You have a long trip. You're driving. And then you say, okay, we arrived. Finished. The trip is ended. You mean the trip was a temporary thing? I thought it would go forever. It was forever. Because it accomplished its task 100%. If, Chas v'sholom, your car breaks down in the middle and you get stranded someplace on the highway, you say that the car was temporary. It didn't really serve out its purpose. You understand?
I'm a little confused. So forever doesn't mean forever.
Forever,
I'm a little afraid.
listen, forever has a meaning. What is the significance of forever? The rock is forever. Rocks, right, don't change. The same rock that's standing here, someplace outside, was here 120,000 years ago. Is the rock forever? Is there any passage of time? Is there any significance to its longevity? Nothing. So the rock is in fact a very temporary thing because it still has to fulfill its mission. A human being who lives a fulfilled life, even though it is temporary in terms of years, for who had Avraham Avinu, it says that he filled every moment of his life. Avraham Avinu, his life is forever. When he finished his life, it wasn't because he finished. Too bad. Chances are, he finished. Shalom. That's forever. Avraham Avinu lives on today because he fully accomplished his task. The fear, the concern about temporariness versus forever is it in terms of where am I going to be left in the middle? You understand? In our own experience, let's say in our small world, if a person, Rebbe helps, and he let's say in the simple form of life, he has a family, has children, and then he sees all of his children, every one of them, married with children, and happily married with children. He has a fulfilled life. If Chas v'sholom somebody passes away before he sees his children married, then he is passing away in the middle of his life. He hasn't had a full life. He didn't see the fulfillment of his life. It's in the middle. You understand? This is the concept of temporary. One who has lived a full life, and maybe Hashem blessed him with the full fulfillment of his hopes. That's a permanent life in our context. Forever has a meaning in human terms, in worldly terms. It has to have, forever means that it is forever in terms of accomplishing the godly quality, godly mission of his life. Then it is,
What's forever? You have the concept of complete your life, and forever it's like different. Forever it's always. It's not going to never stop.
forever means complete. In our context, it means complete.
In our worldly
Right, in our orientation. What's a human being? You know, the Gemara says that a human being, his love for his offspring extends 2 generations. His natural love for his offspring extends 2 generations.
natural love to offspring.
To his offspring, to his children. His children and grandchildren. A person has a direct love for his grandchildren. His great-grandchildren, he has love through his children, through his grandchildren. Oh, this is my grandchild's child. You understand? His grandchildren, he has a direct love for. His great-grandchildren, he also loves, but it is like because they are my grandchildren's children. You understand? That's the limit of the human being. So one who, with Hashem's help, sees his grandchildren fulfilled because the grandchildren have children, his life is fulfilled. This is forever in our context. So this is, so to speak, in the physical sense, in the world, in terms of generations. But the similar thing in Torah. If somebody teaches Torah and he sees his Talmidim go and fulfill live their Torah, and they teach others and they build, that's a fulfilled life.
So he's like happy. He's not wanna. He's happy. He's accomplished his life.
He accomplished his thing.
It's not-
He's lived
not
forever.
having something higher than this.
He lived forever. He lived forever. Yankiv Avinu loy meis, the Gemara says. Yankiv Avinu loy meis. And the Gemara says, Mazare b'chaim, avu b'chaim. His seed are alive, so he is alive. He created this nation, and he continues to live forever. Because his life never ends.
It's already different. As Yaakov Avinu learned because his things continue. Part of him continues.
Yeah, but he himself is not missing anything. You understand what I'm saying? Because his life was complete. He wasn't taken away in the middle. The Torah says, if you look in the Chumash, it says, Avraham Avinu died Zokin Usfa Yomim. What does Sfa Yomim mean? Huh? No. Usfa Yomim mean he was satisfied with his days. Soveya. He lived forever.
So the concept of forever is
We should all live forever.
it means that it's complete. So
What?
I just want to know how things are. So if everything is complete, perfect, and everything, then the world reached forever.
That's right.
It disappears and it's Harut.
And then that's right. The world reached the highest point, the highest epitome of what the world can sustain, what world can reveal in godliness. That becomes a perfect world.
And that's until where the Mashiach reach.
Yeah.
So the Mashiach reach until a certain point. And then
As soon as Mashiach, and then it's going to be Tchias HaMesim, which is even a higher level of perfection.
So there's some truth to the statement, I just have to do this, and this, and then I'm ready to go.
so if Chas v'Shalom Mashiach would come very late, so it's less time with Mashiach than if it comes earlier, so there's such a thing. No, I'm not. It seems to me, yeah, it seems to me like it's not the same chance. We lost chance, let's say. Mashiach would have come much earlier and it'd be more time of Mashiach.
So it's like
There is things that are lost somehow.
a couple hundred years.
Let me say this to you. Most time, less time, it's going to be completely satisfied.
When a Chulub comes, you're gonna give it a big kiss.
You'll be like,
Say,
I'm
oh,
ready.
we've been waiting for it. We've been waiting
I
for it.
guarantee
Huh?
you, 1 second of Mashiach, you'll be like, I'm ready to go.
I'm sorry?
The rock that's
I have
existed
enough.
5,000 years.
Oh,
That's
temporary.
It's completely different. I always thought it was like Mashiach comes and it's forever and everything.
Well, think about it like this. When Mashiach comes, you're going to see the truth behind everything. And all you're going to want to do is have close
It is temporary in the sense that the rock is waiting to be used for a mitzvah. And there are many stories like that from Baal Shem Tov and all that. And if the rock, in fact, is used for the mitzvah, that fulfills its existence. And as long as it wasn't, its existence was not fulfilled. And if we drive down whatever in some special mountainous area and we see the mountain, we say, wow, look what a beautiful creation it is. That's part of the fulfillment of its being. Anything that brings about a Kiddush Hashem, that's part of its fulfillment.
That's cool.
It's cool.
So when you sit like you show appreciation for beautiful nature, you're like giving it fulfillment in its creation.
If you recognize in the nature, that's what we're learning.
Wow, look at God's creation.
Right there, that's what we're learning now.
That's so cool.
Absolutely.
Then it's gonna dry up like smoke. And that's gonna be the best part of all.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ben kol mashpas v'achid ben mashkofet baruch Eloheinu.
Well, if you have just a moment, I don't know if anyone else can speak to, it can be at the end, the beginning, just a moment of time. So, if not, so hopefully sometime before Farouk, and if not, sometime after Farouk. There's all the time in the world for perfection.
After the Haruv, you're not going to
Charu